just remind you that all participants should mute the microphones and turn off video when they're not speaking. Members of the public are able to view but not speak in the meeting. Please remember to unmute your microphone and switch on when you wish to speak, and speak clearly and slowly into your microphone. Anyone wishing to speak should indicate using the raise your hand button, and I will invite you to speak at the appropriate time. We may also need to use the raise your hand should voting be required. Just ask you for your patience with the use of this technology, and I'll apologise in advance for any experience of unforeseen difficulties which we may have. Right, we'll move on. Can you cut your... Yeah, it's Michael, and can you cut your video off, Michael, please? That's it. Right, start off with 1, apologies for absence. I've had apologies from Ian Newman, who can't be with us this evening, but Rachel Cooper will be taking his place. Have we any other apologies?
There are no members' apologies, Chair.
Thank you. So therefore we haven't got any substitute members. Any member got any interests they wish to declare under the members' code of conduct? None. Now we have to confirm and sign them in.
Sorry, I did indicate, but I think you missed it.
Oh no, yeah, carry on.
Thanks, Chair. Just to say, in relation to item 10, just to note that I am a tenant of Dudley MBC in relation to the tenant participation section. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Jack. Right, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of December, can I sign those as correct?
Aye.
You can, Chair.
Thank you. So we move on to 5, which is the annual audit letter, pages 1 to 20, and I think Rachel is taking this.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I've got colleagues from Grant Thornton with me, so I think Richard Percival will go through the report for you, the annual audit letter.
Right.
Okay, thanks, Rachel. I'm just trying to get my camera working. Can everybody see and hear me?
Yeah, you're fine.
If that's great. Okay. So before I talk about the audit letter, I just wanted to start with a little bit of an announcement. This will be my last Audit and Standards Committee. I've decided to retire. So my successor will be Mark Stocks, who's a partner in our public sector audit practice, and I'm in the process of handing over my audit responsibilities to Mark. Terry, who's also on the call, Terry Tobin, is a senior manager that's responsible for the day-to-day management of the audit, and Terry will continue to fulfil that role. I'm just briefly going to talk through the letter, a few things I want to point out, but the letter does largely repeat the audit findings report that we brought to the committee in September. I think one of the key things that I'd just like to flag to the committee is when we brought that audit findings report in September, we believed that we were getting very close to the end of the audit. Unfortunately, we ran into some difficulties relating to the information supporting the valuation of land and buildings, specifically the accuracy of floor areas that have been used to calculate valuations. There ensued quite a lot of work, and I think there's been some feedback to the committee on that process anyway. And this meant that I was able to issue my audit opinion by just before Christmas on the 18th of December. So as the letter says, and I'm on page 6, headed as executive summary of the pack. The financial statements opinion was issued on the 18th of December, and as was able to issue an unqualified opinion. I've also issued an opinion on the value for money arrangements, the value for money conclusion. This is the last year that we'll issue a value for money conclusion. The requirement changes from the coming year, and we will produce an auditor's annual assessment or auditor's annual report that will include a commentary on value for money, but there will not be a value for money conclusion. As noted on page 6, we concluded that the council had put proper arrangements in place to secure economy, efficiency, effectiveness, except for the arrangements for strategic financial report planning, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. The only other thing that I need to update the committee is on is under certification of claims. We've now completed the audit of the council's housing benefit subsidy claim and dispatched that to the Department for Work and Pensions. The housing capital receipts and the teachers' pensions return are in progress. Moving on to page 7, just a couple of points that I'd really like to flag. Clearly, we ran into some difficulty during the final phase of the audit, and that, as I've already said, that meant that we had to do a significant amount of additional work. I would like to emphasise that we got a lot of support from the council staff, and particularly from the finance team, who were very supportive throughout the audit, and I appreciate the support we've given in what has been an extremely difficult year generally. On the value for money conclusion side, I think when we were at the audit and findings report stage in September, we were still considering the nature of the qualification that we may give on the value for money conclusion. And we were considering an adverse conclusion because we were very concerned about the council's medium-term financial position. Following the comprehensive spending review and the better than anticipated settlement from that, although we still feel the council has some significant financial challenges and a low level of reserves, we don't feel that it was as severe as it was looking. However, I would emphasise this is still an issue for the council, and that's why we've qualified our value for money conclusion. I wasn't proposing to go through the detail of the letter, Chair, because as I've said, it largely repeats what was already in the audit findings report, but I do want to just jump right to the end of the letter where we talk about the fee and just make members aware of where we are in fee terms. The impact of the COVID pandemic and particularly remote working has meant that it took us longer to complete the audit than it would have done if we'd have been on site. And it has also meant that we've had to carry out additional work, particularly around valuation of assets and liabilities, but particularly around valuation of assets. You can see from the table on page 18 that we're proposing a variation in the fee due to the COVID pandemic of £18,600. We're also proposing an additional fee due to the work that we had to do on specifically on the land and buildings valuation of another £14,360. Now, both these amounts have been discussed with the Section 151 officer, and we've agreed in principle that total fee variation, but I felt it was important to bring that to the attention of members of the committee. I'm now going to pause at that point, Chair, but I'm very happy if yourself or members have questions to take those.
Is there anything from members of the committee? Yes, Jackie.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick question to Richard. It's our page 10, I think it's your page 7. It refers to the fact that there's no formal engagement letter with the housing stock valuer Savills.
Mm-hmm.
I just wondered how come that hadn't been picked up before, and also whether you knew whether that had now been rectified.
On the first part of it, I suppose to put this in context is we were satisfied that Savills did what they were required to do, and there was clear communication with them, but it wasn't adequately documented. It wasn't what we expected to find, because we expected to find a letter in place, but we've reported it because that it was a deficiency. However, it wasn't a major deficiency, and I would expect it to be rectified for future years, but I can't confirm that it's been rectified for future years.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Michael Evans.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, Richard, I wish you all the best on your retirement. And I hope
Thank you very much.
On page 18, Richard, where we're talking about additional fees, and we're talking about the errors relating to the buildings, did that improve or did that increase or decrease our assets?
The overall impact was an adjustment to the accounts, a net adjustment to the accounts, which actually increased the debit balance on the account. So you could say that it increased the assets, but the reality of the situation is that it was basically just an error in the accounts. It was an unsubstantiated figure, and a lot of work needed to be done in the background to get us to a point where and I would emphasise that we got to a point where we're satisfied that there is not a material risk to the accounts. I mean, there's not a £10 million error in the accounts, but the team recognise that it's something that needs to be sorted out and cleared up. And I know there's a quite a significant work programme that's been undertaken to clarify this.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay. Paul Davis, you want to come in?
Just wanted to clarify for Councillor Cowell. I am aware of the issue. Councillor Cowell and with Savills, Richard, just for information, we'll overlap only at this meeting. I'm newly appointed Director of Housing and Community. Nice to meet you. But yeah, I certainly deal with that. I'll have to look at a retender anyway for that service at some stage. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
So the only comment I was going to make was just on the value for money, where you've qualified the value for money conclusion on an except for basis. So
yes.
It's a better one than it was originally going to be put in.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, thank you. Is that an old hand of yours, Michael, or you want to come back? Right, thank you. Right, that's everybody from the committee. Right, thank you very much for that report, Richard, and I hope you have a very happy retirement.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your work in the past. It's been good working with you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you very much, Chair.
Anything you wish to add to this, Rachel?
Not really, Chair. I mean, it's just to confirm that although there was an error in the asset valuation, it had no impact on the council's general fund reserves, or so it doesn't change what we have got put aside or what the actual sort of usable reserves are. But there is an error, and we've done a lot of work working with our property colleagues to try and address the situation for the 2021 accounts, so hopefully it won't happen again. Thanks.
Right, thanks, Rachel. Well, the committee's just asked to note the views of the auditor, which we have done. So we move on to item 6, which is Treasury Management. You again, I think, Rachel.
It is me again. Yeah, apologies for this. So this is the normal Treasury report that we bring each time this year. at this point of the year. So we give you an update on our activity during the financial year of 2021, and also sets out our Treasury strategy for the following financial year. Treasury management is looking after the council's cash flow, but we also undertake the Treasury management function on behalf of the West Midlands Admin Fund. COVID has caused many problems for the council this year, but it's not had any impact on our cash flow. We've actually been cash rich throughout the year. The government provided large upfront grants in the summer, which have compensated us for our loss of income and our additional expenditure. So as you can see in paragraph 10, it says there that our average investments throughout the year have been £63 million. And although that does vary from day to day, this time last year, that figure was an average of £15 million as our average investment. So you can see that we have been dealing with a lot of cash that we've been investing in safe institutions. That investment information is detailed in Appendix 1. In paragraph 12, our long-term borrowing has averaged at about £681 million. So we've got a profiled maturity dates of sort of in the next following financial year right up to 2061. So that's sort of what's happened during the financial year. And then our Treasury strategy, which you can see in Appendix 2. Hopefully you will have all have picked up that we had to circulate a revised table of our prudential indicators, which feeds into paragraph 3.4 of the Treasury strategy. This was because there were some late changes to the capital programme, and due to the deadlines of the Cabinet report being later than the deadlines for tonight's meeting, those changes had to be built into those calculations after we'd already published the papers. So apologies for that, but it is the numbers that you've received in your email that we do want to get approved tonight.
Right.
All of the potential indicators are there to help assess whether the borrowing is affordable and prudent. And in that table, the changes are on the authorised limit and the operational boundary limits, and those are just calculated numbers based on what our capital programme is predominantly. Our investment strategy also looks at the institutions in which we will invest our cash, and we continue to invest in institutions with high credit ratings. And we also limit our exposure to 15 or 20 million in each of those institutions. As you can see, a lot of our money is invested in call accounts, so we can just ring up overnight the next day and actually withdraw our funds. During the year, as well as a result of COVID as a response, the Bank of England reduced interest rates again, so we're now at 0.1%. So those are the sort of the highlights there out of the report. I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Right, thanks. Just to reiterate the £63 million that we'd got invested, that basically is due to having been given the grants from the government in advance and having a surplus of cash and having already made borrowings before that, isn't it? So that
Yes,
we got more than what we really needed at the time.
Yes, that's right. At the start of the financial year, we'd already made up forward borrowing deals in order to pay the West Midlands Pension Fund at £90 million. And then the government paid us at least £50 million as compensation for a loss of business rates. So normally we'd expect to collect business rates throughout the financial year, but all of a sudden the government gave us a whole year's worth upfront for about 50% of our business rate income. And we've also received a lot of other grants that were to be distributed out to businesses and things like and organisations, and we received all of those up front So it was, yeah, we've been cash rich throughout the year.
Sounds good. The other little thing, in page 36, on item 651, you've got a reference there, 2651 above, on the second line. Can you see it?
Yeah, strategy for non-specific.
It's the wrong number. I don't know where we are referring to.
Oh, sorry. I'll have to just get back to that. Sorry, it's a bit of a typo on that one.
Anyway, it's something that you need to look at and just get altered for the future.
Yeah, that's referring to those institutions in that table in 6.4. Yeah, so yeah, I'll get that corrected. Thanks, Chair.
Right, right. Michael?
Thank you, Chair. Rachel, on page 35, 6.49, where we're talking about the financial market varying, are we anticipating any movement in that area?
There's a lot of uncertainty at the moment, but they expect Link, who we use as our Treasury advisors, have sort of given their advice, which we've built into this report. So that they expect perhaps the Bank of England rate to stay at 0.1% for the year, but who knows what will happen in these unprecedented times.
But we're prepared.
Yes, yes, we are. Yeah, definitely.
Right. Jackie?
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of things. One of them I think might be a typo. Page 33, paragraph 6.2. The last few words of a sentence just seem to be missing. Unless I'm reading it wrong.
Yes, you have. Sorry. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'll get that to you. What that sentence should say. Sorry.
Thanks for that. And just one other point, and I think I've raised this before. The table at 3.4 on page 30. It shows sort of future years boundaries, but it doesn't show the current year actual figures. So you don't have to say the comparison, if you see what I mean. It doesn't show you whether we've actually met the boundary or not. And I think that, I mean, you can see it if you look at the previous report, but I just thought it might be useful if we included how we'd actually done against the figures.
These are just the 2021 is only like a mid-year assessment, so we haven't got the full financial year yet, so we have to report on the year-end figures. But when we produce this table for a future Treasury report, we will build in the 2021 actual external borrowing and long-term liabilities into that.
Like the 1920, it's not on there, as I just thought that perhaps could be a useful, if you see what I mean.
Oh, sorry, I thought the 1921s were in there.
1919.
Not the actual
2019 to 2020. She's talking about.
Yeah.
2019 to 2020.
Yeah, on the and this is where the table has got. When we send you a revised version round, the table that was originally in your paper documents, and I've got a complete agenda of before we changed it, does have the 1920 column in, and then when we've circulated the 2021, it looks like we've taken the 1920. So apologies for that.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
But I can send you the actuals for 1920. That's not a problem.
All right, that's great. Thank you very much.
Right. Sean Casey.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. Obviously, this is all about borrowing and paying back and interest rates, etc. But I just wondered, I believe part of our income is a dividend from Birmingham Airport. Is that going to be in any way affected by what's currently going on, or will that just remain constant? Thank you.
there is some commercial sensitivity about the dividend, but during the financial year of 2021, we were notified that we wouldn't be receiving a dividend for this year, and we've built that into our financial forecast. So it's actually showing as a overspend through our in-year monitoring.
Okay, thank you.
Right, does anybody else want to? No, it looks as though hands are clear. Yours an old hand, Sean. You haven't knocked it down yet. Right, thanks. Right, that's everything cleared. Right, so the committee recommended that we note the activity of the Treasury report and approve the Treasury strategy for 21-22 as attached in Appendix 2. And we authorise the Director of Finance and Legal Services to effect such borrowings, repayments and investments that are appropriate and consistent with the approved strategy. And that the committee refers all the above for approval by full council on the meeting of the 22nd of February 21. That agreed? No dissensions?
Yeah, aye.
That's agreed?
Yeah.
So we now consider any questions from members to the chair where 2 days clear notice have been given, which we haven't had any.
No, Chair.
We now have to remove the public, so I move that any public and press be excluded